She said it was the time in her life when she most didn't feel that she mattered. Every week, she had a scheduled one-on-one, and she would sit there, and her boss would join about 15 minutes after the meeting started.
Can you touch on how mattering is built in moments and not accolades, awards, and prestigious trips around the world?
Belonging is being picked for the team, but mattering is feeling that the team wouldn't be complete without you. We haven't had one person say, when I got more money, I felt that I mattered to somebody. An award is a symbol of value. Money merely compensates. Only people can value people. Your next great leadership act is your next interaction. You may not have positional power, but you always have interactional power. I'm glad you brought that up specifically because there's 3 major practices, right, that we've uncovered.
This week on the YouPotential podcast, I get to sit down with Dr. Zach Mercurio. He's the leading voice on mattering and human significance at work and beyond. Zach is the guy companies call when they want to create deep cultures that are based around people feeling seen and like they matter. He's worked with the U.S. Army, Marriott, JP Morgan, Delta, and even teaches alongside Simon Sinek on how leaders can show people why they matter. In this conversation, you'll hear one thing every leader, parent, teammate needs to understand. It's in the small moments that make people feel like they matter. Or it's in those same small moments that we quietly break them where they don't feel like they matter. Before we get into this great conversation, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're enjoying this conversation, leave us a review. It really helps. We love it. And now, I hope you enjoy this fascinating conversation with Dr. Zach Mercurio. Dr. Mercurio, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Shaun. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to have this conversation. You were referred to me by Dr. Michael Steger, and he said, I have to, not I should, but I have to have you on the show. So here we are.
Mike's great. I'm glad you connected with him.
Yes. I thought we would start out to get to know Zach a bit more. I found something online where you quoted Claude Debussy.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Am I saying that his name right?
Debussy, yeah, the composer.
Claude Debussy, how he famously said that the magic of music lies in the spaces between notes, which I think is a fantastic idea. For you, Zach, when you're in those in-between spaces, those moments in your own life, what playlist is on?
Right now, I am listening to a lot of Jon Batiste.
A
lot of Jon Batiste, just sort of American jazz / rock / funk / all of the genres that he transposes on one another. And if you do This Is Jon Batiste and then do Jon Batiste Radio on Spotify, you get a great eclectic mix right now.
Nice.
And my son, my 10-year-old, going to be 11 next week, he just did a project where he picked him as his musician to research. So been listening to a lot of Jon Batiste.
Nice. What is it about Jon's music?
Have you ever seen him live?
I have, in New Orleans Jazz Fest, actually. Yeah.
The man just brings such amazing energy wherever he goes. I mean, the interview on stage, wherever you see him, you see that energy. My son wrote, you had to, in this assignment, you had to write what you have in common with the musician you're researching. And he wrote, we both, spread happiness wherever we go and make everybody feel like they belong. And so I think that he does this through the different genres he plays. I think everybody in the audience can resonate with something, feel something with his music. And so I really like that. And, he has this saying that I love you even though I don't even know you.
Oh.
So it's a very message that the way he lives his life, the way he does his art is very aligned with what I research.
Yeah. I love your son's statement. I spread happiness everywhere I go.
I spread happiness wherever I go, and I make sure everyone feels that they belong. That's what he said he had in common. Yeah, so It's cool. Yeah.
On this idea of belong, you said they belong. When I was preparing for today, I noticed that there is a nuance in your work on mattering and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
How about let's start here. What is the difference between mattering and belonging? And why did you choose mattering as a subject of your book?
Yeah, belonging is feeling part of something, part of and connected to something. Mattering is feeling important to people within that
Mm-hmm.
group. So let's use a example from my kid again. I have elementary school kids, sports games at recess. That drama is top of mind. So belonging is being picked for the team, right? It's being welcomed, accepted into a group. I'll add inclusion too, because we've talked a lot about that in the last 10 years. Inclusion is being able to play in the game, being invited and able to play in the game. But mattering is feeling that the team wouldn't be complete without you.
Mm-hmm.
Mattering is feeling significant and important to people, to feel seen, heard, valued, needed by an individual person in an interaction. And the reason why the distinction is important is because you can foster belonging through symbols or programs, or if you're a leader, like an onboarding program or making sure peers are connected, you can foster inclusion by making sure people are represented and that people have an equal active pathway to contribute. But you can only foster mattering through interactions in which we feel seen, heard, valued, and needed. And that's what's really powerful about this concept, because to be important to another human being is a survival instinct. Nobody would be listening right now if at some point we weren't important enough to another human being to keep us alive. So that deep primal survival drive to be important to somebody turns into this psychological need to feel seen, heard, valued, and needed by them in interactions, which is what is called mattering.
Mm. I can't help but go back to your question when you said, have you seen John Baptiste live? And you and I both can listen to his album, but if we see him live, there's that collective effervescence that is only created when I'm there. And what I'm hearing with the mattering is that I could belong to a group. But your comment about the sports kids makes me think of that experience at the concert is when I feel significant, that my skill, my attributes are essential to this team, then I matter.
Let me tell you let me give you the difference from a John Baptiste concert example. You have a crowd of people, feels like they belong. There was a point in the set where John Baptiste was playing one of his new songs, called Big Money. It's a really high energy song. There was a man who was in a wheelchair in the front, and the man was getting up very slowly. Yeah, there's a video of it. I'll send it to you after. He's getting up. He's putting his hands, like all his effort, he's putting his hands on the speakers in front of him to will himself up. The singers, the guitarists, John Baptiste, all crowded around, even though there was 15,000 people there, all crowded around, and were just looking at him, singing to him, cheering him on. Like, that's mattering, seeing somebody. Everybody in that audience felt like they belonged. That person felt that they mattered. Someone saw him. All of their energy was directed towards him. It's a really cool moment. But that exemplifies what happens. It's when we feel seen in the group, when we feel important in the group. And it only happens in those moments of connection.
Mm. And, we've all experienced a version of that, whether it's our spouses, our fathers, our parents, where someone sees me. I have to share this as it's preparing for today. I was really understanding a bit of your nuance, and I coach hockey. We were talking about before we recorded. The kids are only 9, but I started to actually see them and let their skill or contribution to the team be noticed and say oh, we rely on you for that. It matters. And a couple of little eyeballs really perked up. So thank you for that.
One of my favorite stories from a hockey example was John Bacon. I don't know if you've read his book. It's called Let Them Lead. John Bacon took over the Ann Arbor High School River Rats in the U.S., and they were the objectively worst rated hockey team in America. They hadn't won a game in over 300 days. And just a year after he took over, they lost 5, And then the year after that, they only lost 2, and they became in the top 5% of hockey teams. There was no change in objective talent on the team. The number one thing that he did was he said he wanted to make them feel that they mattered. He spent obsessive time learning about their lives, their hopes, their dreams. He would go to other sports that they were a part of and show up there. He would hang out outside the classrooms and ask them about their class if they needed help with any classwork. He said anytime they had a suggestion, like if they wanted to switch up lines in hockey, he would say, okay, the proof's in the pudding. Let me talk to the coaches. Let's try your idea. And if it doesn't work, let's explore why. If it does work, let's explore why. He allowed them to co-coach. And he said, and one of his players said that, we would have followed him anywhere because previously what was expected of us was to fail. And so we did what was expected of us, but he showed us the potential we didn't know we had. It was all built around mattering, the entire turnaround, and it was all built on interactions over time.
I actually got goosebumps listening to that. It's incredible when you show people they matter. Can you touch on how mattering is built in moments and not accolades, awards, and prestigious trips around the world for achieving X?
Yeah, and we know this, right? This is why mattering is common sense, but it's not common practice, right? We know this, but it takes practice and skill and consistency to do it. Think about when you most feel that you matter to somebody. If for people who are listening who work, for example, the reason why I do work in organizations, not because I love business, but it's because it's where the people are. It's where most people are. Work is one of the most ubiquitous human experiences. But think about when you most felt like you mattered to someone at work, right? Chances are right now you're not thinking of when your boss when you got like a quarterly earnings report, or when you got a promotion, or when nobody's thinking, oh, when I got my direct deposit, or when you got Employee of the Month award. You're probably thinking of a small moment where a leader gave you responsibility that you weren't quite ready for, but allowed you to step up. You're probably thinking of a moment when somebody remembered something about your work and checked in on you. And saw how it was going. You're probably thinking about somebody who remembered something that was going on in your personal life and reached out above and beyond work and offered to help, right? You're probably thinking about an interaction. And this is what we find when we ask thousands of people, when you most feel that you matter, what's happening? They don't talk about big actions. I've never had one person, we've surveyed thousands of people. We haven't had one person say, when I got more money, I felt that I mattered to somebody. When I got a promotion, I felt that I mattered to somebody. And the difference is these are symbols of value. An award is a symbol of value. Money merely compensates. I love the word compensation because it literally means to make up for. What are we making up for? We're making up for people's time and gifts that they give us. So that's all compensation is. So that doesn't value people. Symbols can't value people. Only people can value people. You can symbolize someone's value through an award, through a program, through money, through a perk, through a promotion, but it's an inanimate object. It can't actually value a person. People value people, which is why mattering happens in interactions between people. This is something a lot of organizations, a lot of teams, sports teams miss out on, is that we've had this subconscious idea that people should add value, that people should be valued once they add value.
It's conditional.
Right? So if you perform, produce, then we'll value you, then we'll do all these things. That's typically how it works, even in our lives, I think. But the reality psychologically is true. The opposite is true. We need to be valued to add value, because the more we feel valued, the more we feel seen, heard, valued, and needed by those around us. This is evidenced in John Bacon's turnaround of the Ann Arbor High School River Rats. The more we feel valued, the more we develop self-esteem, the belief that I'm worthy, and the belief that I'm capable, which are the beliefs necessary to have the confidence needed to add value. The more we add value, the more we see how we're valued, the evidence of it, the more we feel valued. And that's that upward spiral that takes place. But the real mechanism is that when we have these interactions, we're adding evidence, we're giving people evidence, or when we're part of them, we're adding evidence to our self-beliefs that we're worthy and capable that allow us to have the confidence needed to continue adding value. The problem is, many organizations have symbols of value. Many teams have symbols of value in the absence of the daily experience of feeling valued.
So I love this, Zach. You're walking into a big area of mine that's money and the fleeting satisfaction that can come with it. And you talk about the symbols, whether it's money or other forms of compensation. We all see it in organizations, is that oh, this person's unhappy. Let's talk with him. Let's have a quick meeting. Let's put out the fire. Do you need more vacation time? Like, say I'm the organization, I really value or their contributions create profit for my company. So I'm like, should I give them more money? Should I give them more vacation? What do you want? What are a lot of leaders and organizations missing when we throw compensation of whatever form towards that person?
Nothing, no symbol can make up for the daily experience of feeling unseen, unheard, and unvalued. Nothing can make up for that. That's what your culture is. Like, your culture is an accumulation of interactions. So, for example, if you put this is why when you tell someone if they're burned out to go take a vacation or take time off, you can't rehab a person and put a well individual in an unwell system, because they will eventually become an unwell individual. Right.
That is a really good point.
Yeah, it's a principle of toxicity. It's a basic principle in biology, right? If you take an organism out and you do all of the things, right? Well, like, let's use the metaphor, yoga classes, mindfulness, tell them to read self-help books, whatever. You do all of that, that person gets back on track. You take this organism out of this environment, but the environment's still toxic. You put that thing back into the toxic environment. It's the principle of toxicity. Eventually, the well individual will become an unwell individual in an unwell environment. The same is true with culture. You put a person who believes that they matter in an environment that shows them otherwise, they will start believing that they don't matter. Because one of the things that's important, a lot of people say to me, Zach, well, my sense of mattering can come from myself. Like, I build my own self-esteem. And I wish that were true, but it's just psychologically, biologically, and sociologically untrue. We become who we are with others. The only reason why you know a human being is because that's been reflected back to you. So by another person. So everything we get reflected back to us goes into the evidence of who we think we are. It's called our self-concept. And if we're getting the evidence to the contrary that we're significant every day, and then someone gives us money and says, hey, you're significant, we will feel that tension. Right? We will feel that tension, and it's very short-lived. And, going back to compensation, again, the word compensate means to make up for. So when you're not creating relationships where people feel seen, heard, valued, and needed, and you have to give them more vacation or more money, you're basically paying them more, compensating them more to suffer more. Which is what a lot of organizations have done. We'll pay people more to suffer more. So they'll put up with more. That doesn't work from a long-term perspective.
When you mentioned about the self-concept, it's actually sad that, like, we can have employees in our organization that give up so much of their precious finite time to work for us, perhaps have a toxic culture, like we're talking about. The system creates unhappy people, tell them to go on vacation, almost make it like it's a them problem. Go on vacation, de-stress, come back refreshed. They come back, and the system that they're a part of is still the same. So they're probably going to feel the same. And I can only imagine the self-concept is now going very low because they're like, what's wrong with me? I just had all this time off.
Or it's like, time off, replace it with a big organizational purpose statement. All of a sudden, we're telling you you're changing the world right now, and you're doing work that impacts people's lives. But then you go back into your work and you're never thanked or shown the difference that you made by your leader. Or, you can replace the vacation with new values on the wall, or new culture initiative, or the big award ceremony where you got this award for being the most XYZ employee. And then you go into work and you are overlooked in that next meeting. That's culture. The magic happens when the symbols actually match up with the daily experience. But what's been missing is the daily experience. Data finds that upwards of 30% of people say they feel invisible at work. Gallup released their latest employee engagement data. On average, 7 out of 10 of us are emotionally uninvested in our jobs. It's the lowest it's been in a decade.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Oh, yeah. And this is despite over $1 billion. The employee engagement services industry is $1 billion. We have 100 validated assessments. We've implemented well-being programs, DEI programs, perks. Wages have increased 42% in 8 years, which is pretty good, even with inflation. Yet people are more disengaged than ever. Why? One of the data points in that study by Gallup in 2025 was that just 39% of people strongly agreed that someone cared for them as a person at work. You can't solve that through a program or a perk. You can only solve that through a relationship. Just 30% said they strongly agreed that someone invested in and saw their unique potential. 8 out of 10 people feel lonely. This is at work. This is despite, on average, we send 30 to 40 text-based messages a day. There's 38 million people, as we're talking right now, messaging each other on Slack. We're more connected than ever, but we're lonelier than ever. Meeting time in organizations has tripled since 2020. Everybody's more connected, but they're lonelier than ever. And why is that? It's because when you look at the research on what predicts loneliness, the opposite of loneliness is not having more social contact. It's having more perceived social value to other people. It's not the quantity of interactions that matter. It's the quality interactions in which we feel seen, heard, valued, and needed. And those things are declining. And that's so this mattering deficit is really at the engine of some of our most pressing issues, like the disengagement crisis, loneliness epidemic. Personally, professionally, organizationally, people feel more overlooked and unseen and unheard than ever.
We're having more conversations, but not getting those enduring interactions that actually resonate to us. I recall when I was a young guy, 27, I got a really good job out of my league. Turns out the hiring manager, I reminded her of her son. So that's why I got the job. Anyways, it was pretty stressful. I was doing a good job. I remember one Friday night, I got a text and she's just like, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you and the work you're doing. I was like, oh, all right, I'll run through a wall for you now. So there's your moment.
Those moments, I know. And one of the reasons why, a lot of this isn't common practice is that we have this underestimation bias where we tend to underestimate the impact of these small things on other people, these small gestures. And so we don't do them. Like, for example, think of someone that you rely on right now. Everybody. It could be your life. It could be your work. Now think about the last time you told them explicitly. Right. The John Templeton Foundation did a study that found that 90% of people could name somebody that they're grateful for. Less than 20% said they told them in the last 5 days. Psychologist Nick Epley finds that when he does experiments, he'll have people like write thank you notes to people. He'll measure the people writing the thank you note on how impactful they think it was. And then he'll measure the emotional impact on the receiver. And every single time in every one of these studies, the giver has underestimated the impact.
Wow.
Of the small gesture.
Have you heard of Paul Zak, his work?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had a conversation with him and it was making me think of his research on they were giving money, but when you give money to someone, it releases some oxytocin. And it, as a result, if someone trusts you, you're more likely to trust them back.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And one of the engines of trust is mattering and care, as he talks about, because when you have the quality relationships, it does produce oxytocin, which is, he calls like this trust molecule, right, in his research. But it's the molecule most predictive of perceived trustworthiness of another person. The thing that we miss is that you can care about someone from afar, but there's a big difference between caring about someone and caring for somebody. The care that actually promotes trust, like in Paul Zak's research, that care for another person, it takes time. It takes understanding. You can't care for something you don't understand, whether it's a pet or a person. And understanding takes time. It takes attention, and it takes skill, and it takes habit, and it takes intentionality and showing up in every interaction. Because also oxytocin release can be depleted in one interaction. So I may trust you, but if you threaten my safety in the next interaction, my oxytocin goes down, my cortisol goes up, my fight or flight goes up, and you have to rebuild that. So mattering is created in moments. It's also destroyed in moments.
In a moment.
In a moment. Biologically in a moment.
Can you give this sprinkler example? I feel like this is in line with what we're talking about.
Yeah. So I got asked to go work with this group of window washers. They're part of a big maintenance team. This is how my engagements typically start in organizations. Hey, go fix these people. They're unmotivated. And when you get down to it, you actually talk to the people. I very rarely find an unmotivated person. I very frequently find people who don't feel that they matter. So I went to this group and I was asking them, what's going on the team? How's work going? The question I started with was, if you were running this place, what would you do differently? I did not see an unmotivated group of people. They consistently had ideas. I didn't even have time for the ideas. And so afterwards, I asked them to do some individual interviews. And there was this one woman that said, Zach, I can explain all of the motivation issues on this team. I said, okay, no, explain away. She goes, about 5 years ago, I was tasked with supervising a team that in the summer has to go to this client's building and clean the bottom floor windows every morning. Just in the summer, but it's every morning they go, and it's a huge building in this industrial complex. And she said, I was 2 weeks on the job, I was leading this team, and I realized that every afternoon at 3:00 on that site, the sprinkler system goes on, and it's aimed wrong, so it splashes all the windows. So really what we're doing is every morning we go do this avoidable task. And so I went to my supervisor and I said, hey, I noticed something. The sprinklers are aimed wrong. We need to just fix the sprinklers. We could save so much staff time and money. And the supervisor said, that's not your job. That's the sprinkler people's problem. I need you to do your job. She said that she put her head down and she just did her job and nothing more for 5 years. And guess who she told? She told her people, hey, don't speak up because it's not going to make a difference. Right? This was not an unmotivated employee. This was an employee who experienced anti-mattering, the moment of being insignificant, having your voice unheard, dismissed. And there are two actions that follow moments of not mattering. We either withdraw, which is what she did, isolate, withhold, focus on what I can control, clock in, clock out. Remember quiet quitting? Mm-hmm. Quiet quitting was born by this TikTok influencer who said, if you don't like your job, just do the bare minimum just to get by. And then bizarrely, that went viral. People were like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to do that.
I'm going to do that. And then in China, the lying flat movement went viral at the same time. People were taking pictures of themselves lying flat on a bed to renounce society. But what's interesting is that Gen Z is also the loneliest generation, and they report the lowest quality interpersonal interactions and the lowest quality of mattering. And so this was not a withdrawal. This is not an entitled, lazy generation. Quiet quitting was the inevitable withdrawal response to someone who feels insignificant. Mm-hmm. Think about a relationship in which you feel unseen. We typically withdraw. That's what they did. The other action, though, can be much louder, where people, when they feel that they don't matter in interactions, they act in desperation. Gossip, complaining, blaming, protesting. I would argue that most toxic behavior in cultures are actually symptoms of people who feel unseen, unheard, and unvalued, that have been misunderstood perpetually over time, rather than just difficult or toxic employees.
And the solution is fire them. Get a new one.
Right.
Put them back in the system.
No. Fire them. It's either fire them or outsource their development to HR and put them on a performance improvement plan. So yeah, that I've come to call those sprinkler issues, right? You may be thinking, well, I would never do that. That example, that supervisor was awful. Every one of our teams, every one of our relationships has sprinkler issues, little moments that cause someone to feel unseen and unheard. It's like when your partner makes you coffee and has gotten up early for however long, and then you've never thanked them. Like, right? It's little these little blips of social ignorance. The eye roll in a meeting. When somebody tells you something interesting and they're really excited about it, and you just start thinking about an email you have to send. Right? These are little signals that add to that self-concept. Oh man, maybe I don't want to speak up again. Maybe I don't want to share my voice again. Maybe my coach doesn't really care about me. So why would I care?
How about asking your leader, supervisor, whomever, do you have time? Come walk with me to the printer. We'll talk. That's all the time you get is the printer walk, or talk with them and at the watch.
Yeah. I'll never forget this. In our interview study, there was a woman who we asked, when have you most felt that you didn't matter in your life? Now, okay, this person was in her mid-40s. And usually the stories we were getting were like childhood stories, things like that, difficult stories. But she started telling me that she started this new job. She had just had her youngest, her newborn, and she started a new job. And she was trying to navigate that. And she said every week she had a scheduled one-on-one, and she would sit there. It was a remote job. And she would sit there, and her boss would join about 15 minutes after the meeting started. and would say, sorry, you know how it is, back-to-back meetings, and then would end 5 minutes earlier to get to a next meeting. So she would sit there, and he never acknowledged that she was sitting there. He never added more time. He would email her and say, hey, can we cancel our one-on-one since we have nothing to talk about, without asking her. She said that she would go home and journal and cry all night because she felt so unsupported, and she was just trying to learn a new job. And she said it was the time in her life when she most didn't feel that she mattered. That boss probably never remembers that, right? Never even just thought it was another one-on-one, another part of the routine. But it's these little moments that can either make or break someone's sense of self, especially when you're in a position of power. And I'll never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, it's Shaun. I know I'm breaking into the conversation just for a moment. There's good reason. If you're here, it means you care about living with more purpose, more meaning, and deeper connection. And that's exactly what the YouPotential podcast is all about. When you hit that subscribe button, conversations like this, the ones that challenge you to think differently and open to new possibilities, keep showing up to you every week. And when you share this episode with someone you care, you're not just passing along a podcast. You're giving them a chance to reflect, to grow, and maybe even to reimagine what a good life can look like for them. So please take a second, subscribe, share it with a friend. Let's spread the conversations that truly matter. Now back to the show.
I feel like it's a really, really good story. While, it's not, I wouldn't say extreme, but a listener might be like, oh, I've never done that. I would never do that. I am confident, myself included, and maybe even you too, Zach, and everyone else listening, have our own version of those that we just didn't realize.
I agree. Yeah, I always say I teach and research what I need to hear the most.
Yeah, don't we all?
Right? Because I'm at the whim of everything else. Like, our attention is being fracked more than ever. Our attention's all over the place. It's harder for us to pay attention to one another. We've actually become worse at doing these things for one another because we've used our phones for 25 years almost now, to the month we send our first text message as a species. Like, we've been sending text messages, short digital transactions to each other to get out of social communication. So like, Shaun, if you give me some bad news, I can just send you a sad faced emoji now on Slack and say, sorry to hear that. I don't have to sit with you, seek understanding, show compassion. So think about this. There's this notion of skill decay. So within about 4 days of not using a skill, even a social skill, we can lose it. So imagine that every time we use a text message or a platform to communicate with one another, and we get out of the social situation to actually use the skill to communicate with one another, think about what happens to our social skills. So our social skills to do this stuff have decayed in a time where we need it the most.
The very thing that makes us an incredible species is our ability to communicate and have rational conversations. We are, I don't know if I'm going to say consciously, but we are allowing to decay, to use your word.
Yes, we are. And I mean, you add in, I didn't plan to talk about this, but add in AI, right? Artificial intelligence. I think people are very quickly realizing that artificial intelligence doesn't care about you and can't care for you. Artificial intelligence can do our tasks. It can't take moral responsibility for the impact of those tasks. AI cannot and will not ever be able to be accountable to another human being. So go back to Paul Zach's research. We are not entering the age of AI. We're entering the age of human trust, because what's going to be the most sought after commodity is the experience of having another human being who's morally responsible to you, who you can trust. That's what's going to be the rarest thing. And so if we don't reskill ourselves to develop caring and trusting relationships, we will be obsolete.
It's wild. It's wild. So for listeners who are leaders of any sort, could be leading families, let's talk about some of the skills you've seen. And I want to start with, goes in line with a sprinkler example of evaluative versus exploratory questions.
I'm glad you brought that up specifically because, okay, so one of there's three major practices, right, that we've uncovered. People feel that they matter when they feel noticed, seen and heard, affirmed, when they feel that they have unique gifts that make a unique difference, and when they feel needed by somebody. part of noticing someone is being able to gather the data to actually see them. And part of the way to do that is that we found is that leaders, and I mean, when I say leader, I mean anybody who influences anybody. Leaders who do this well tend to ask good, high quality questions. And there are three components to good questions, right? They should be clear. They should, like, what has your attention today is a clear question because there's an object, your attention, and today, a time frame. They should be open, not a yes or no answer, but they should be more exploratory than they are evaluative. An evaluative question is any question in which we're in the position to judge the quality of someone's response. So, for example, my kid plays competitive soccer. He comes home for practice. If I say, hey, did you hustle at practice? Do you think he's going to be like, no, Dad, didn't today? Right? That's an evaluative question. Or an evaluative question in the workplace is, what's the status on that? You going to get that done by next Friday? Tell me, right? Tell me why isn't that getting done? What's the problem with that? Why aren't you moving that client to the finish line, across the line, right? Those are evaluative questions. It's just like asking your kid the question, hey, did you hustle today? And expect him to be like, nope, sorry, Dad, didn't. Anytime we ask an evaluative question, we will get a self-protective answer. And we won't get all the data to actually see somebody. So instead, ask exploratory questions like, in my kid example, one of the things I've been asking him now is, what's an effort you're proud of from practice? Like, what's an effort? What's a time where you're proud of your effort? Tell me about it. And guess what happens? He gets really excited to tell me about this. Oh, I was in this corner kick. I jostled into position and I did that. Like, he gets really specific. And it's really cool because I get data I would have never gotten. When you ask somebody, hey, what are some log jams on that project that are getting in the way of getting it done by Friday? How can I remove them? You get really cool experiences of someone actually talking about real things that you can help with as a leader, which is what a leader does. Too many of our interactions, though, are evaluative, especially as leaders, especially as parents. They're transactional and not transformational. But you can't lead somebody or parent somebody you don't understand. And so if you're asking questions that don't help you foster understanding of a person and their experience, then it's going to be very hard to lead them or understand them.
You can't lead someone you don't understand. That is a really good statement.
Yeah, you can't parent a child you don't understand. You can't coach a kid you don't understand. That's why, John Bacon, again, we'll go back. He says that I learned to see the person before the player. You learn to see the person before the employee, the human being before your kid, like your son and their role, right? The unique experience. I have a friend who's raising teenagers right now, and he's like read all these books about it, but he stumbled upon this question. It was like in a podcast that changed everything for him. And he said that he just asked his daughter, hey, I just want to know, what is it like to be a teenager right now?
What a question.
And he said everything he tried, everything to connect, didn't do anything. But that question, it was like a water hose. And he just listened. That's what happens when we seek understanding. That's what happens when someone feels seen. And asking questions is a major mechanism to helping people feel seen.
I don't want to derail this here, but you brought up your kid a couple times and sports. And I shared I have a kid in playing competitive.
Well, that's probably why, because we talked about that.
Yeah. You said it was a travel team, like a competitive team?
Yeah.
Do you struggle? I know logically, but I'm going to be honest here as a dad. Like I like hockey a lot too. And my son's pretty good at it. Yet he has his moments where he's finding his way in this new league. And I could see him glancing up, like looking for that moment of approval, significance. Dad, did you see me? And there are times where I can find myself very much on the evaluative feedback. Do you ever struggle with that?
I do struggle with it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been so upset with myself as a spectator. Yeah. Like, I've gone home and was like, what are you doing? Why are you asking those questions after a game? Why are you giving that like look when the look?
Oh, I know the look. I know the look.
But one of the things that's helped me, there's actually a book that helped me, and it's called The Confident Mind. It's by a neuroscientist that actually works with like some of the best athletes in the world. And the question that helped me out is you can be invested if you're asking questions about things that add to that person's confidence to make the changes you want to add or want them to make. For example, he talks about, asking questions about effort, improvement, and successes. Effort, improvement, and successes. So instead of like asking questions about like, why didn't you do this or why did you do that, which is like, think about it. Think about if someone was observing our day, right? And I did this. Like, I'll do this. Like, why did you just clear the ball outside your own line to give them a corner kick, right? Well, he's going to be like, well, I'm trying to recount being in that situation. Like, I don't know. But if you ask like, hey, like, what's an improvement you can make based on what you learned in this game, next game? That's a total like, because what it does is these questions actually work with kids, especially because what happens is he's like, like I could do this next time. And he's developing confidence as he's improving. And what I found is that sometimes I would ask questions like, why did you do that? Or what are you doing? Or why didn't you hustle? Or if you're not going to go out there and commit, then we're not doing travel soccer.
We've
what I'm
all
talking
been there,
about.
Zach.
But just shifting, just creating some space, right? Just breathing and thinking about like, is this actually regenerating the energy he needs to improve? Or is it extracting the energy and confidence he needs to improve? And that's helped me a ton. Just say, I'm going to wait. I'm going to create some time, some space. And I want him to know, I want to know what's an effort he's proud of, but I want to know what's something that he learned about himself or about his team. And that makes a huge difference. But it takes discipline. When I'm in the emotional state of it, you have to create some space. It's a practice. It's a skill I'm not perfect at.
Thank you, Zach. I needed that. I didn't expect to talk about this, but I'm sure there's other people listening like, I know those looks. And that space is important. And I want to go back to these moments because whether it's our coaching our kids' sports and the challenges, it's a similar feeling with our employees. I liked your idea and the story about the black book of employees that you talked about. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Can you talk about that? And I'm bringing it up because perhaps I need to do that with my son for his hockey.
Yeah. So one of the things that we find is that leaders who are especially good at helping their people feel that they matter is they tend to have a practice of observing. Part of that is asking questions, but noting what they observe and then sharing back what they observe. So they actually don't leave their attention up to chance. They take their attention captive and manage their attention very well. And I learned about this practice, pretty much everything I learned from real leaders trying to figure this out in real time. And one of the people I got to observe was with this distribution center supervisor. And I got asked to go to this distribution center. They all scored really low on employee engagement scores, except for one team. And I love outliers. So I went to this team and I said, what do you do here? And they all said some version of, it's our supervisor. She just gets us. We do anything for her. So I went and asked her, I said, what are you doing? And she said, well, it's really simple. She pulls out this old moleskin notebook. She said, on Friday, I write down each of my team members' names. She has 27 team members. She says, I write down one thing, just jot down what I wanted to remember about them from this week. So if it was things like there was a piece of equipment that wasn't working that she promised she'd get it fixed, she'd write it down. If they were nervous about a meeting, she would write it down. If they were going on vacation or their kid was starting a new sport that weekend, she'd write it down. And she said that on Monday morning, she just grounds herself before she gets into the fast-paced environment of a distribution center. She grounds herself and puts in her phone like a little 3-minute reminder to check in with each of her team members over the course of the week. And she'll say things like, hey, I remembered that last week you were nervous about that meeting. How did it go? I remembered last week that we said we'd fix this piece of equipment. How did it go? Did we get that fixed? And she looked at me and she said, it was some of the best leadership wisdom I've got from this frontline supervisor. She said, Zach, I've realized that there's magic in being remembered. And I love that because it was a practice. I mean, I'm not necessarily asking you to keep a personal logbook on people's details if that's not your style, but you should have a practice of documenting and remembering the details of the people that you lead and checking in on those things and closing that loop. We've come to call this her noticing notebook, but I like the term black book too, which is funny.
This practice you speak of, how about yourself? Having done extensive research, in-person interviews, research with live companies, like you said, real leaders. Have you developed any practices?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things with all of these is you have to make it your own. I'm not really a journaler. In fact, I have so many journals I've started and then they're all over the place. But on the top of my one-on-ones, what I do is I write, don't forget to ask about, ...
Mm.
And that just triggers me to ask about something. If I'm writing thank you notes, like I block it on my calendar. I protect that time as vigorously as I protect any other time. The other thing is that I tend to not, when I'm in transit or in these in-between moments, say I'm in the bathroom at an airport and I see a janitor or custodian, I never walk by someone and don't acknowledge them or say thank you. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this work. If it's a clerk at the grocery store, I'll say, hey, I know life's really hard. It's a hard job, but thanks for being here. So I've learned to like make it a habit of not letting myself be socially ignorant of the people around me, which really helps. The other thing, I have someone who works for me. Her name is Emerald. She's amazing. And I send her any feedback that I get about my sessions, I make sure she sees it because she did all the arranging to make sure I got there. So like if someone will tell me, oh, I loved working with Emerald, what I'll say to them is I'll say, hey, would you write her a note, please, and tell her what you loved about working with her? And so I feed that back. So those are some of the things that I do.
It'd be interesting to talk to Emerald as a case study on the guy who brings in mattering.
I know. Well, the bar is pretty high, which is really good. And that's something that everybody can start is say, I want to make sure you feel that you matter here. I'm happy the bar is high. I'm happy that I have somebody that I lead that knows that I do this work because I have to be accountable to it. That's what, leaders who tend to do this, they tend to make the expectation known. Hey, I want everybody to feel seen, heard, valued, and needed here. And I want you to tell me when that's not happening. And I think that that's important for everybody to do.
So this idea of mattering, at times, it could be a big concept, and trying to distill it down. Your book is a great way of doing that. If there's one thing that you would say to leaders who are feeling time poverty, that they just don't have time, this seems like a lot of work, what would be one thing you would say to these leaders who manage staff and they want their employees to matter?
All it takes is an interaction, right? Your next great leadership act is your next interaction. We've seen it time and time again. When people talk about their best leaders, they talk about interactions. They don't talk about all the stuff that's pulling your time away. They talk about how you show up for them. That should be exciting because you can do something about it. You can do something about it today. You may not have like positional power. You may not have systemic power, but you always have interactional power. There's no red tape to showing up in your next interaction and seeing, hearing, valuing, and showing someone how they're needed. You can do it today. One of the best ways to start, I would say, if you have no time, but you have like a minute, is to ask everybody you lead this question. When you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? Or when you feel that you matter here, what are we doing? What's happening? And just take a piece of paper out, take your notes section of your phone out and write it down. Write their name and write down the behaviors. And then just commit to doing those things for that person.
You're seeing them.
And that'll give you better data than any culture, climate, or engagement survey.
Although they can, their pitch is really, really good to take those engagement surveys.
They're good, but again, they measure general attitudes. They don't measure daily experiences.
Your comment earlier, I forget how much millions you said the engagement.
It's $1 billion industry, just services,
industry.
Just services to improve engagement.
It makes me think back to John Baptiste's Big Money. I believe the song's all about consumerism, but yet all it takes is seeing that person in the wheelchair, that moment.
Yeah.
Forget the engagement surveys.
Yeah, he talks about wanting to live for something real. Wanting to work for something real. I mean, there's nothing more real than the person in front of you right now. Everything else on a platform on your phone is not real.
Those are the interactions that matter. I feel like this is something that I've been trying to do more in with my employees, but it was from a mentor hockey coach. I was telling similar struggles and about my son. And so I'm on the bench with him. He's like, just don't say anything. If you see him doing something good, just give him a little smile.
Yeah.
It's all it is a little smile.
Yeah.
Don't say good job even, because I was working on not saying too much, but a little smile. And you can do that in your office, your staff. It's just like, if you know you're working on something, it's just like, hey, I saw that.
So funny. I've gotten the same advice for people, and I've done it. I feel a lot better actually after games when I don't say anything. And I'll just do the like, they almost like, keep it up, like, great work. Or if he looks at me and something wrong goes, I'll just be like, it's all right. Like, move on. Like, and those things go a long way. But yeah, that's leadership though. We talk about this in a sports parent example or coach example, but that's leadership. All of those same things apply, like how you react when someone makes a mistake. I know we didn't talk about this, but how you react when someone makes a mistake can like determine whether they want to make a mistake in front of you again. It can hurt innovation. It can make someone not want to speak up. It can, if I get mad, if my kid tells me he doesn't hustle, do you think he's going to tell me he doesn't hustle? No.
On that, how you react when people make a mistake, are there reactions you've seen from leaders in the organizations that you worked with that surprised you that it had that much impact on people?
Yeah, there's this organization. It's they manufacture like car mirrors, but they had a mistake policy. Like, when someone makes a mistake here, here's what we'll do. 1, we'll seek to learn how the mistake happened. So ask them, invite them to share. 2, we'll ask them to teach others about how to avoid the mistake. And 3, we'll make sure to treat it as a learning opportunity with them. So they had this mistake policy that all their leaders agreed to, and they told their employees on this. And it was really powerful. It came from some research on what's called psychological safety, which is the belief that we can speak up and take risks and experiment without fear of being retaliated against or losing our position or losing our belonging in a group. But yeah, that reaction of like first treating it as a learning opportunity, treating it as an inevitable human experience that people are going to have who are trying. Anybody who tries is going to make a mistake. And then having a non-punitive initial response and a learning-based response typically goes a lot further in organizations than punitive. Now, there are organizations in which it is life or death to make a mistake, and in the moment, you may have to like stop the mistake from happening immediately, but shortly afterward, there should be some moment of learning, reflection, and involving the person back into teaching.
I'm glad you brought up psychological safety. It seems like it's a building block, one of them, to creating a really mattering relationship.
Yeah, I actually think psychological safety is mattering in disguise, because psychological safety is really built on this idea that you have what's called secure attachment. And that means that you matter enough already to a leader. You have a secure base so that when you go out and you experiment, takes risks, learn, fail, you already know you matter enough to somebody independent of those things, so you can come back. You have someone has your back. That's what I often think, like, confidence happens when we know someone has our back. Right? Confidence on a team, a player's confidence happens when you know someone has your back. Like, for example, in soccer, a striker can confidently go play defense in the front because they know their midfielders are there. Right? And so that's the mechanism of psychological safety. I think it's creating that secure base from which people can launch out and do hard things. That in the absence of it, people start questioning whether they matter. They start questioning whether they should try this thing because they don't know if their belonging in the group, mattering to another person, is going to be threatened. And so they typically hold back. This is why organizations who tell me we want to be more innovative, I first say, do you have leaders that make sure people feel that they matter first?
And then you get your innovation.
because nobody's going to go out and try an experiment if they feel like they're that primal instinct to sort of reach out and have someone reach back. That primal instinct is violated or under threat.
Like, from an evolutionary standpoint, I don't want to be shunned from the tribe. And at
Absolutely,
work,
you
if I
die.
make a
Literally, you
mistake,
die.
hmm
If you got shunned from the tribe back when we were like hunter-gatherers, you would die.
hmm
And that same, your brain right now, it's not been that long from a evolutionary perspective from that time. Your brain right now, like, can't tell like whether your eye roll as a leader in a meeting, is not shunning them from the tribe and leaving them out to dry, right?
And when we bring money back into this, like we start, like, there's some legitimate situations where this job is survival. We need it. And if there's no psychological safety or no mattering at my work, I'm not going to take a risk, because if I get shunned from the tribe, so to speak, if I make a mistake, then my income's gone, and just
And then we do it with other things too. Like, part of like noticing people is making sure people feel that their energy and emotions are valid as well. So if people try to come in and there's no place for emotion in work or energy in work, or low energy in work, and someone is dealing with something and they feel that they can't bring that into the workplace as important data for how someone might lead them, then that person will typically withdraw. They're not going to put forth extra effort. That's why emotions and energy in organizations are not noise, they're data. Again, you can't lead someone you don't understand. So if you don't understand how someone's doing and all you ask them for is, what are you doing for me? Then you're missing out on data to lead them.
Zach, you got such great statements. Emotion is noise, or isn't noise, it's data. I feel like I could chat with you for the whole day. However, we do have to land this conversational plane. I'm curious about your story in the respect of, from your dissertation work to now. Our listeners like to hear about like the people behind this, or the stories behind the people. Reading your dissertation, I got the sense that perhaps meaning was a focal point. Like meaning was the word used, but yet there was a lot of seeds of this idea of mattering. And here we are today. You publish a book on mattering, etc. How, if anything at all, has your thinking from that dissertation days to now evolved, changed, or modified?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first is, when we were studying this small group of custodians, we embedded ourselves with them for a year and a half. We're studying what made work meaningful. So meaningfulness is the experience of something as positive, purposeful, and significant. But what I didn't realize that what they were experiencing was moments of mattering, which was leading to the meaningfulness, moments of mattering to another person. So meaningful work is knowing that your work is significant. Mattering is knowing that you are significant.
Can you say that again? That was good.
Meaningful work is knowing that what you're doing is significant. Mattering is knowing and experiencing that you are significant. And what we realized, it was small moments where, a building user made eye contact, remembered someone's name, where a supervisor relentlessly showed them the difference that they made. I remember one supervisor in that study said, just imagine if we all went on strike today, what this place would look like. That's how he started every day. He reminded them of the significance of their presence by getting them to imagine the significance of their absence. Right? So these practices of showing the person how they matter really led to meaningfulness. And what happened is we then did another study a couple of years later. We surveyed 1,000 plus people in 22 different industries. And we were trying to understand what leadership behaviors led to motivation, meaningfulness, low turnover, all of these variables. And again, it came out to be very small interactions in which the person was made to feel significant by the leader. And one of the variables that explained the most, what's called variance or effect on the meaningful work variable, the motivation variable, the turnover variable, was the experience of mattering to another person, to a leader. Now, so all of that's happening. And then we're getting reports after the pandemic that there's this loneliness epidemic. But then you really look at the psychologist Alexander Danvers, who's one of the most foremost experts on loneliness. You look at that data and you see loneliness is not predicted by social contact. It's predicted by perceived social value. And then you look at feelings of invisibility. You look at the disengagement crisis and the data underlying that. And we said, oh gosh, we've missed this level, this interactional level. It's not that people feel lonely. It's that people feel that they don't matter in interactions. It's not that people are disengaged. It's that they don't feel like they and what they're doing matters. Even burnout, we find that, burnout, people have been doing too much since people were people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Human beings are an under-resourced, high-activity species. So that doesn't cause burnout. Manageable workload is one factor, but what actually causes burnout is doing things, putting forth effort that's unnoticed and that doesn't matter. It's usually not doing too much. It's doing too much and remaining completely invisible. William James, American psychologist, once wrote, "No more fiendish punishment could be devised than were to someone to be set loose in society and remain completely unnoticed." He called it a punishment. So that's what led to this book based on that dissertation and some of the research we had done in between then and now.
Thank you for that answer. That last quote, the whole answer, fantastic. I'm going against my instinct to keep going on that answer because I got two more questions for you.
Oh, okay.
For Zach, when you think about success, what does success mean to you in your life?
I think success is finding a meaningful need and filling it to the best of your ability.
It's not big money, eh?
If you're filling it to the best of your ability and you're actually filling a need, money usually follows as a byproduct that usually allows you to keep doing what you're doing. But finding a meaningful need and filling it, I think that's success. And I could be doing a lot more. I could be productizing a lot more. I could be scaling a lot more. I could hire a lot more people. But that's not, to me, that's not success. Success is being able to be in conversations that matter and add value. And if something pulls me away from that, it's not success for me.
Your answer just spoke to me. Before we recorded, you said, "Why do you do this podcast?" And I feel like those conversations that matter is a big part of it. Yeah. I didn't articulate it to you, but it was, you woke
I typically ask people that question, why are you doing this? Like, why are you spending your time with me right now? Because I think it's again, it's just helpful to know. And that's what I want to know about people.
Yeah. How about your kid? We've talked a lot about kids in this, and I think it's great. If I was interviewing one of them and I said, "What is success to your dad?" What do you think they would say?
Oh my gosh. I think that they would say just spending as much time as possible together, really.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they have any conceptualization of what I do.
Yeah. No? They don't ask.
I mean, they know what I do, but like it's so like I don't want them to, I don't care if they know what I do. What I care about is if they know how I live.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would think they would describe how I was living. I mean, we adventure a lot, we explore a lot, we're very impulsive, we have a lot of fun, we do a lot of things together. I think that would be success to them because that's what they experience when I'm most fulfilled.
It seems like your son said that when he commented on what him and John Baptiste have in common is, I forget, spreading happiness.
Spreading happiness. Yeah.
Sounds like you when you're going to the washroom at the airport and saying hello to the custodian.
Yeah, I mean, it's happiness is tough, right? Happiness is a feeling of pleasure.
Yeah.
I try to reveal to people purpose. Like, I try to help people to see their own significance. Yeah. That they may not see, because I know the washroom doing that is not pleasurable, but it is purposeful.
Yeah. This is my last question before we conclude, which I have a final one there. See, it just keeps going.
Sure.
What has money, your relationship with money, taught you that you didn't expect?
Yeah, it's taught me great lessons. It's taught me that I'm a worse person when I'm trying to make money. I'm a better person when I'm focusing on doing something purposeful and trusting the money will come. I actually make more money when I'm more purposeful over a longer period of time than when I try to make money quick. I've done both. And that's what I've seen. And it has not failed to be true. And also, I would say this, this is interesting, actually. I'm just thinking about this now. When I am making money, it tends to be when I'm most in relationship with other people.
Not with it, but other people.
Other people, yeah. Or not with it, or not trying to just make money on my own for myself.
Oh, I see.
When I'm like giving to other people, bringing other people along, sharing with other people. It's all this stuff we know, though, right? I mean, this is ancient wisdom, right? Really, it's like, the degree to which you add value is the degree to which you get value, usually, in return.
You say that we know this, and which is true, but going back to like the environment or system that we're participating in, it does not encourage us to do this. We're swimming upstream.
No, I mean, it's hard to be morally good in a system that incentivizes us not to be, right? But that's why being able to like name it, like have conversations like this. Once you can name something, you can change it. Once you can name something, you can continue doing it. That's why one of the things I'm really happy about with this work on mattering is that it's naming something that's everybody's felt or don't felt, and everybody knows they need. And when you can name it, you can really start thinking like, am I cultivating this every day? Do I feel this? If not, who do I need to reconnect with who has made me feel that way? Do I need to like look up more, say thank you more, see people more? Who do I need to see more? Who do I need to show how they add value more? And the boomerang effect is the more you do that, the more you see how you matter.
Zach, thank you for this conversation and all the work you're doing. I hadn't thought about that text message from my boss that I shared for a decade, probably. And it's coming back to me about how simple some of these things are in the moment that you share, but how enduring they are. As we land this plane, my last question that I've asked everyone is, let's imagine you're at end of life. Doesn't matter how old you are. You're still mentally able to write and think. You're sitting on a front porch, looking out at a view that gives you complete peace, ease, and contentment. You decide to write one last note or article to your children's children on what living a meaningful life meant to you. What would be in that letter?
First, I would re-emphasize that they can't not matter. Like every day, you put inputs into the system that is life, that has an infinite impact, and that you may not see. But you have to believe that there's that impact. There's a Scottish theologian, he wrote, a river's source knows nothing of where it leads. And I would remind them that it leads somewhere. And so to really think about what that downstream impact is that you want. And then I would say to make sure you tell people how they matter to you. Don't be the person who thinks of someone they're grateful for but hasn't told them in the last week. Tell them. Right? And the other thing that I would mention is one of my favorite columns was by this journalist named David Brooks, but he wrote this column years ago and I still read it. It's called Resume Virtues versus Eulogy Virtues. Resume virtues are the things that people talk about what you acquire and achieve. They're the things that go on your resume. Eulogy virtues are the things that you want people to say at your funeral. And I would ask them, are you pursuing resume virtues or eulogy virtues?
I just want to give you a big old hug. This conversation has been good.
Awesome.
We're ending here. Say you were writing your own eulogy and you had to name the book your eulogy. What would the name be?
That's a hard one. I mean, right now, I would just name it like significant.
Significant. Okay.
I love that word. I love the word significance.
Zach, thank you so much for sharing your research, some insights about you, answering my questions. This has been a delight. For listeners, where can they get your book, your work, where should they go online?
Yeah, you can go to zachmercurio.com. Everything's there. There's like a bunch of free resources too. And then I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I have a good following there of real people who are real leaders, sort of testing and trying this stuff out. Zach Mercurio there as well.
We'll include all that. And the book is awesome. I really enjoyed reading it. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Shaun.
That conversation with Zach was awesome. What a great guy. I loved how he talked about the importance of mattering. And yes, we all want to belong to a group. But mattering really is that deeper sense that we feel significant to the group. And if we were in the group, they would miss us. So no amount of money or compensation is ever going to do that for someone in our groups. It was also fun to talk as dads about the trials and tribulations of navigating travel sports for our kids. This week's question is, how are you showing the people you lead or the people in your group that they matter? That if they weren't there, the group wouldn't be the same. Sometimes it's not the answers we learn from, it's the questions. If you've been enjoying these conversations, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you like this episode, check out episode number 15 with Dr. Frank Martella on the importance of stop chasing happiness and the lessons the Finnish have learned about living a meaningful life. Until next time, take care.